Welcome to Chicago Jewish Cafe. Today, our guest is Hanna Baranchuk. She's a lecturer in communications at Curry College. Hanna's Ph.D. dissertation was on Neo-Fascism and the State, the negotiation of national identity in modern Russia. And that is why we have invited her to help us understand what caused Putin's Russia to wage the war against Ukraine. Hanna, we do know that majority of murders are committed against the people murderers know well, often within one's own family. Please help us understand why Russia, which claims Ukraine as its little brother, invaded it and is killing now Ukrainians.
Yes, this is a tragic situation, and I think many people have their own answers to what's going on. And it's interesting that Putin's rhetoric is focused on this idea of neo-fascism and fascism, which is supposedly flourishing in Ukraine, right, on the high state level.
Well, he calls it neo-Nazism.
Yeah, neo-Nazi, yeah. Denazification of Ukraine, that was kind of the goal of Putin right now, right? But I think many people, especially in the West, understand that this is not the case. And this is just a kind of pretext, mostly, I think, kind of aimed at Russians in Russia. So to gather some support, to gain some support of the Russians, because this is what Putin needs to, to wage this now, as it turns out to be lone war. It's not a fast operation as Putin, I guess, wanted it to be initially, right? So it's mere rhetoric, and this is what I study. I study rhetoric and its consequences, and my dissertation was focused on the use of the word fascism and how it is used differently by different parties in Russia. And one of the most important party that I'm focused on in Russia is, I mean, not political party, but the object, right? The subject of my study is the state, Putin. And it's interesting that we have this conversation right now that Putin is supposedly fighting neo-fascism or fascism in general, right? But at the same time, in my work, I realized, I kind of came to a conclusion that Russian state has some very frightening overlap with extreme ethnic national identity, kind of nationalism, right? And which can lead to fascism. And I think we see right now some elements of that.
But let's not forget that his main ideologist is Alexander Dugin.
Oh yeah, he is. Dugin is a very famous neo-fascist.
Right. And in the 90s, he openly called himself a fascist.
Yes, yes. And that's interesting, when in the 90s, people could just come out as fascists. But when Putin came to power in 1999, right, for some time, Russian neo-fascists could speak freely, more or less. They were not necessarily afraid of the consequences from the state because they were minor nuisance to Putin, right? But then with the introduction of the new law against extremism, 282, right, 282, legal statute there in Russian legislature, many Russian neo-fascists declared that they cannot speak up freely, so they have to speak in a more delicate manner. But they are still fascists. They're still neo-fascists.
But they just changed the name to Euro-Asians, whatever, Евроазийство,
Exactly. So it's just the rhetoric that changed, but the essence didn't. And I think one of the reasons why Putin supposedly cracked down on neo-fascists in Russia was just to make sure that those hooligans, as he called them, hooligans, don't get into his way to offer this idea of a superior ethnic Russian nationalism to Russians, because that could scare away people, because they would see those supposedly, I guess, crazy people running around with swastika. And then the memory of fascism is alive in Russia, although it's very complicated memory. It's not the memory of fascism that many Western people have. So it's different. So definitely, there is a very strong connection that I see between Russian state and neo-fascism. And as you pointed out, there is a cooperation that is going on those levels. So this is key. This is very key.
The main ideologist, well, I do not know if you want to call him ideologist, everybody calls him philosopher, but I think that he is just, I'm sorry, to me, he's just not only heartless, but also brainless. I mean, he switches as he likes it, you know. I'm talking about Alexander Dugin. In 1988, I was in Moscow, and I was in one family, and came two people, and they were introduced. One of them was introduced to me as former wife of Alexander Dugin, who my host called a fascist, and proud of it. Now, he still remains, I mean, initially he was a follower of Ilyin, you know, Ivan Ilyin, but now he picked up some Western things. Maybe you can comment on this, Dugin, because I saw that in 2019, he was on one of the videos indicated as advisor for external social relations of Russia to Putin, advisor to president. Maybe you can say something about it.
All I can say about this is very scary, in a sense that, you know, open and proud fascists are rotating on the same level as Putin, and they are exchanging ideas, right?
Official advisor to Putin.
You see, so there is some even official level.
Right. Also, he was a professor teaching at the General Staff Academy. Russian general. Right.
That's a big deal. If you're teaching somewhere, it means you're allowed to teach there, right? Many people who are speaking against Putin, they're not allowed to teach anywhere, pretty much. So there is it's a big hint, if people didn't get it yet, that Putin is sympathizing with these ideals, fascist ideals.
But everything he says sounds to me like he's trying to be another Führer. I mean, Führer, he does not even have the breaks that Brezhnev had. Brezhnev had at least, and Khrushchev had some members of Politburo that could say something maybe. But this guy does not have any members of his, I mean, he just does whatever he wants.
He is definitely the sole source of power in Russia, right? And exactly, this is scary in a sense that it's a cult of kind of a Führer, right? A cult of a leader that has all the power he wants, and he can do whatever he wants. And right now we see that with the war in Ukraine, right? And maybe you watched that Security Council meeting before the war. The interaction between the officials, it was so awkward. It was so painful to watch. And that gives away exactly what you're saying, that Putin is the sole source of power, and he coerces everyone into following.
Some of them, it seemed to me like were ready to pee in their pants.
It was very uncomfortable to see, really, that people on such a high level, you know, even I disagree with the government of Russia completely, but just watching that was uncomfortable for me. Yeah.
Let's shift our conversation a little bit to the fact that it's war of Russia, supported now, according to the latest survey, by something like, what, 83% of Russians, against Ukraine. How can it be that they say this is our brother nation? Now, of course, they found that, oh, it's ruled by Nazis and we need to free them. But now after 1 month of fighting, and Ukrainians are fighting them like crazy, and Russians militarily losing. I mean, they fight horribly, just absolutely horribly. Even if they, God forbid, win, they fight with their corpses without any consideration for humanity of their own or of Ukrainians. But in any case, Russians support this war of Putin. Why against Ukraine? Couldn't they find some other nation, maybe Germany or France or United States? I mean, they threaten nuclear bombs.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I think everybody has to think about the answer to this question. And first of all, to address the statistics, right, the results of the poll, I think not everybody who answered in support, who supported the war in Ukraine really supported. Maybe they're scared, possibly. But still, I still trust that a big number of Russians support this supposedly special military operation, right? So that's very concerning. And I think there are different people there also in that bunch who support the war.
By the way, it's not special military operation. It's
of course,
special operation.
Special operation.
Military военное cannot be part of this expression.
That's right, because that's the war, right? Although in English it's a bit different. Military and war, just a bit different rules, different roots.
And also the question is, yes, it's your special operation, but those that are fighting you, are they waging war against you or what? Or
I think they I've been analyzing Putin's rhetoric for at least a decade, 15 years, right? I mean, wars of his rhetoric. And I saw the escalation of this narrative. And this is not a new narrative that, Russia is supposedly fighting neo-fascists in Ukraine, but actually what they're doing, they're fighting the West, the United States specifically. I don't know if you know.
You openly declared that they fight the United States in Ukraine.
I think everybody understands that in Russia who support Putin. Maybe just a small bunch of people think that genuinely they fight neo-Nazis, Azov battalion, right? But I think most people get it. They get it that this is not Ukraine, this is the West. This is the other, the big other. Maybe you remember about the Putin's youth organization, Nashi, that was active from 2005 to about 2013, and about that time. So this rhetoric, and they were called a democratic anti-fascist movement, Nashi. And they didn't fight neo-Nazis in Russia. They didn't fight Azov specifically. What they were fighting, what they were prancing around against in Russia were the United States, the United Kingdom, the European Union.
Of course, the entire ideology, modern ideology of Russia today is the fight against liberalism.
Yes, and this
democratic,
exactly.
Yeah, this is, as they call, a liberal totalitarian state. Listen to this phrase: liberal totalitarian state.
And that's not surprising to me, because when I was analyzing all of this state rhetoric, I was also focused on the rhetoric of specifically Russian neo-fascists, and they were saying the same thing, the exact same thing. They're fighting liberal fascism with their democratic fascism,
with their
democratic fascism, right? So it's such a complicated rhetoric that makes my brain hurt if I do that for an extended period of time, obviously. So it's easy to understand. People just want to get their way. Russians, not specifically Russians, but Putin, right? He wants to get his way, and I think his way is just power. The sphere of influence that Russia supposedly used to have and now wants it back, and maybe more. Because with fascist project, fascists want more than before, right? That what kind of separates fascists from conservatives or kind of reactionists.
Following what you just said, I see now the Russian invasion of Ukraine is just simply a mental therapy session, trying to define better one's own identity. What does it mean to be Russian? I mean, what does it mean? They do not know what it means to be Russian. And in Ukraine, they try to find the answer. I mean, this Dugin, by the way, his mother is Ukrainian.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter, does it? Right now.
Well, I think it does, because it seems to me like many people of that sort, he wants to connect Russia with Ukraine, and he
connect
sees
to the mother.
Yes, and he sees this as number one step. By the way, I've looked.
Could be a Freudian kind of take, Freudian, right?
Absolutely.
Take on that.
I've looked at all the people, ideologues around Putin, and this 80% of them are mixed Ukrainians.
But they do consider themselves probably Russian, although I don't think it matters what they think. They think about Ukraine as a part of Russia. Ukrainians are supposedly Russians, they think about it as one, but at the same time, it's not exact, right? They still think about Russians, they think about Ukrainians and Belarusians as the second kind of in chain of command. In a way, they don't think about
little Russians, little
brothers. So there is some kind of dismissive element. They say we are one, but then they say no, but you are kind of behind it.
And they feel like they love them to death, and
literal death.
Literal death
right now. It's not.
This is just amazing. I have to say, I saw the war coming many years, but I thought it was going to be sort of different. I mean, they took Crimea. In my mind, Ukraine will never see Crimea again, period. Now, and if this Donetsk and Lugansk will separate, well, okay, be well. I mean, Ukraine will not lose much if it preserve its own armed forces to be able to defend itself against Russia. But what I want to say about this ideology, development of ideology in Russia, after this show on March 16th, where he was talking about domestic enemies, he used the word as one word, national предатели.
Yes.
National traitors. Now, the only person who used these two words as one was Hitler in Mein Kampf. Now, did Putin know that? I don't know, but he follows the path.
I'm not sure if he's a crypto-fascist, like he secretly admires Hitler and he sometimes gives it away in his words.
Very interesting.
And I don't think that matters to me. What matters to me that right now people are dying, and I see the danger of Putin's regime. And definitely, I don't know if people can call Putin fascist, because there is a big debate in academia about what fascism is and how it can be labeled, how we can label things. But for me, it doesn't matter, because I see how dangerous Russia right now, how dangerous Putin right now, and in ideology, right, which is very closely approaching fascist rhetoric for one, and then ideology for two, right? So I see lots of.
Well, you say race link. That is, yes. I may a little bit differ from you, because Russian fascism does not have race as its central element.
Well, but at the same time, recently, 2 years ago, right, Putin amended constitution by including the Russian language as the main language of the state-forming nation. So there is some kind of element of elevation of ethnic.
Absolutely. And Russian orthodoxy and language and culture, but it's not race. That's what differs it from
Right.
Hitler's.
So there is a kind of ethnicity race conversation, but at the same time, the consequences are the same in a way, right? People are dying right now because
The consequences, unfortunately, may be even worse. Russia has 7,000 nuclear bombs, and having gone crazy, can actually use them.
Exactly. And I hope, I don't want to use the word crazy, I hope he is not, because then we don't know what to expect and what to do. But I think, considering, as that you were observing the ideology of the Russian state, kind of demagogues, right, of the Russian state and how it was developed, I saw the same thing with my, with my work, but I didn't want to panic, because I know that I'm a bit, paranoid and panicky as a person. So I thought maybe as a researcher, I shouldn't do that. But then we have this. So now I see the kind of the result of that development of rhetoric in Russia. And also to add to ideologues in Russia, as one of the Russian journalists pointed out, that Putin's recent speech about Ukraine, right, as part of Russia, basically, is very kind of very similar to some ideas from the works of Yegor Holmogorov, who is also a very sticky kind of ideological element in Russia, right? Ultra nationalist. So there are lots of connection with fascism and the rhetoric, for one, and then we see some actions. We see the military expansion. We see the calls to internal cleansing to get rid of this national traitors, right? So there are so many parallels with classic fascism and neo-fascism. Although, as you rightfully pointed out, it's not the race kind of element, but there is an ethnicity element as a part of it.
Ethnicity, for sure. And because ethnicity is not that easy to establish, what exactly is ethnic Russian? If I speak Russian, does it mean I'm Russian? No, you're not Russian because you're a Jew. You're not Russian Orthodox. If I become Russian Orthodox, would I become Russian? Well, you were born a Jew, so maybe not. But if I was born, for example, Ukrainian, and I become Russian Orthodox, well, you are almost Russian.
Yeah, there is a gradation here, right?
But what is Russian? You have to be born from Russian father and Russian mother, or maybe one, maybe. And it depends how I treat it.
Right, and Russian neo-fascists are more clear on that. They focus specifically on Russian parents, ethnic Russian parents, and sometimes they accept maybe one Russian parent as a necessary element of Russianness. So you see, Russian neo-fascism are more precise in that, but Putin cannot be that because Russia is a big country, and if he does that, there could be some consequence. Although I'm not sure, considering that results of the poll, right, as you mentioned, 80% of Russians support Putin in that. I'm not sure the consequences would be visible, even if he says something more fascist.
Well, the poll, as you said, the poll itself does not mean anything. I mean, because the country is at war. So to be for Putin now is to be for your country. You need to be patriot. If you're not a patriot, you have no friends no more. So these surveys mean very little. I mean, the moment Russia will start losing on battlefield, and they will see it, they'll drop their support like crazy and run.
But Russia is a bit losing, right, in the sense of
it's losing and it's not losing. If it's going to be able to take and hold eastern Ukraine and have the water coming to Crimea, he will declare it a great victory of Russian arms and be ready for another war.
Yes, I agree with you. This is what it looks like right now. What can happen with their kind of change of strategy in terms of troops, how they deploy them. And that would be very sad for Ukraine, of course. And as you pointed out, that could be another kind of reason for Putin to move further, right?
Absolutely. He's going to be better prepared. He's going to be, he's not going to leave it alone. And the horrible thing about it, I mean, they already were talking about using tactical nuclear weapons, because the guy says, this captain, I forgot his name, on TV, on First Channel, says, well, we have to use nuclear weapons. Tactically, how do you like that on TV? And
well, you know, on Russian television, they have been routinely speaking about nuclear weapons. You know, maybe you remember Solovyov mentioned that Russia can easily destroy the United States with nuclear weapons, right? Атомная пыль or something like that, he said, right? So they've been using this nuclear rhetoric a lot. How realistic, how really they want to use it right now, will they? I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised.
It's interesting that they imagine that they will wipe out Warsaw in half a second. Probably
They
Chicago,
do.
the Zhirinovsky thing, drop on Chicago. Horrible.
They
Chicago,
do.
drop on Chicago.
And,
what happens to my Chicago Jewish cafe?
well, they don't care.
Zhirinovsky, by the way, is he still alive?
I don't think so.
He died?
I think so, yes. That's what I think that
I'm not for dying anybody, you know, but the thing is, no better person it could have happened to.
right. And it's interesting. I know in this semester I'm teaching conspiracy theories, so I'm not a conspiracy theorist myself. I'm kind of warning people against this, but it's funny. But I've seen a recording of Zhirinovsky talking about February 22nd, 2022, and Ukraine, that something would happen. So, you know, probably there were some talks going around about that. And in December
this
already.
is amazing. On the basis of this, now he is considered the great prophet of Russia.
It's not profiting. It's not being a profit. It's profiting in a sense of kind of PR, but he doesn't need it right now, does he? But it's just, I think people
this needs to be, you know, if you find something, you know, how did he come up with this? Now, granted, the way I see it, he came up with it like this. In 2014, on February 20th, Russia invaded and occupied Crimea.
Right.
So the way he thinks, and maybe he talked to Putin, and Putin said, you know, we'll make a surprise visit or something like this, you know. And then he thinks, because in his rhetoric, he was thinking that Ukrainians were going to do something on February 21st or something like this as a payback to Russians for February 20th. And therefore, Russia is going to be on 22nd or something like this. But it's connected.
There is certainly something, yeah, some symbolism. Yeah. I think the Russian state likes symbolism because the Russian state is a bit of, I think, fatalistic kind of. They believe in the past, so they like the symbols, I think. So definitely there is something going on the higher level, which, you know, difficult to understand why would they deal with this, but that's what they do, right? They invent stuff. It's rhetoric. They invent ideas. They invent justification. They invent dates when to begin. It didn't happen on the 22nd or 20th, right? It happened on the 24th, but still kind of close.
But what is interesting about Russian mentality, I'm talking about Russian political mentality.
Right.
It has no borders, no limits, nothing, no facts necessary. As long as it's something plausible with regard to some element, it's fine for them. And no proof is necessary.
Exactly. This is what conspiracy theories are, right? No proof is necessary. There should be some element of truth, and the rest you can just imagine anything you want, right? So that's Russian identity, we can say, is a kind of a conspiracy theory, right? That the West is plotting something again against us, and we will do anything necessary to defend our lives in a way. And actually, Putin, I think, believes in that. Really, you know, Western leaders want to get rid of him, especially right now. I think that's a real fear that he has.
Before we finish, I'd like to ask you a few questions about the impact of this ideology of Russian fascism on America. Now, I know on the left in the United States, there's plenty of so-called progressives who will side with anybody who is against the United States. But what is interesting about this Russian fascism, especially of Dugin's, that he has a lot of supporters on the American right. Tucker Carlson, one of the mouthpieces for Trump, he has this general McGregor who loves Dugin, and there's many others who love him. Could you please comment on this? The way I see it, you know, if you know about it, the way I see it, in my mind, talking about Putin's use of fifth column, these people are fifth column for Putin in the United States.
I do agree with you. I do agree with you. And the rhetoric they use, the right-wing proponents here, they also speak about enemies of the state, enemies of the people.
Absolutely.
So the rhetoric overlaps, and it's super scary here.
Yeah, globalists. Yeah. I mean, he talks about globalists, and he speaks to association of Serbs. And I'm thinking, just one second, does he appreciate the fact that he's speaking to immigrants who are really globalists because they still have a lot of attachment to Serbia? Or he uses it as he likes it?
I think it's as it goes. They use it as it goes, because I don't think they have a very clear ideals. They know what they want, and they will say whatever they can to get what they want. So I wouldn't expect a very coherent ideological narrative. Right now we live in the age of so-called post-truth, right? Post-truth, supposedly, which I don't believe, but still, you know, people take words, they empty them of meaning, and they create their own meaning. They, you know, infuse their with own meaning, just like Trump does, like everybody who supports him, and just this is what Putin does with his supposed anti-fascism, right? So I think we should watch out for parallels, definitely, between Putin's rhetoric and rhetoric on the right here, because I can see lots of parallels here. And many people here see that, but those people are mostly kind of in the middle or closer to the left, maybe, but not on the right. So the right doesn't see that. And do you remember what Trump said about Putin when Putin invaded Ukraine just recently? He called him a smart guy who can get away
genius
with that. Genius, right?
Genius, yeah.
Of course, he changed his rhetoric a couple of weeks
he
later.
He explained it that you can't take it seriously.
But still, you see, this was his very genuine and kind of immediate response to that. So, and actually, just to give you an example from the other side, when Putin was, when Trump was elected, Russian media was cheering and saying, "We have our guy in the White House," right? So you shouldn't be. It's not very hard to establish those connections. It's not.
Well, Putin liked him. This guy, North Korean little clown, liked him with nuclear bombs. You know, many people liked him. He almost destroyed NATO. I mean, so why not? Why for Putin not to like him? But in any case, talking about this you said post-truth age we live in.
Well, many people say that. Maybe. I don't agree with that. I believe the truth is there, but yeah.
Truth, in my mind, continues to rule the world, and Ukraine shows that that is the fact. Ukrainians are fighting for what they believe, for za pravdu. Yes. That is in Russian means truth and justice.
And it's not just any truth. They believe that freedom, respect, you know, ability to say whatever you want to say is the truth.
Absolutely.
And this truth is kind of not ontological truth, it's more like ethical truth. It's, you know, from the ethical position, we should be able to be free.
Absolutely. 30 years of freedom for Ukraine and 6 elected presidents. 30 years of authoritarian regime for Russia and none of the fairly elected presidents.
Exactly. So I think Ukrainians right now are showing the world how it should be, you know, how we should fight, how hard we should fight for freedom and truth.
And
right?
That is why they know what they fight for. And Russian soldiers don't.
They don't. And it's a good thing to see that Russian soldiers are demoralized in a bit, in a sense, because they're not on the right side of history. They're not on the side of truth, and they should know it. They should know it when they
I think
see
they know, most of them by now know and realize, but it's a Russian army, you have to do it. What, 200, 300 years ago, they got this model from Germans, Achtung, Achtung, you follow the orders of the commander, and that's it. But where's the personal initiative? Where's the thinking? There's nothing in Russian army.
But it has been destroyed for a long time in Russia. If you take education, for instance, you cannot speak freely in that sphere. Dugin is a philosopher, supposedly, and a professor. So we have to talk about this as a whole, right? Education, military, rhetoric, TV, it's all a preparation for this, and wars, maybe, hopefully not. But
this is horrible, because the way I see it, if they take Ukraine, I mean, I do not know what they're going to do with Ukraine. Probably they'll take the 30% of Ukrainians that will be willing to serve Russians and rule the other 70%. There's going to be many problems. But in my mind, that is going to be just continuation of war in Ukraine, and it will not stop at the borders of the former Soviet Union. It will go much further, and it may, like Zhirinovsky said, come to Chicago.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Again, on my personal level, I know that I am a panicky person, but I think it's not the panic that talks here, speaks in me. We see the precedents, we see lessons from history, how it goes, and we know that power doesn't like to limit itself. There is always more power to get, supposedly, and territory.
And I agree with you, and especially because the way if I place myself in Putin's position, let's say that fighting will stop now. This 83% will just drop like a brick, because there's going to be a lot of dissatisfied people. I mean, many Russians in Eastern Ukraine are going to be very dissatisfied. And many Russians within Russia are going to be dissatisfied. What did we get? What are we getting? We're getting nothing.
They will see the emptiness of this ideology. That
I do not know if they will see the emptiness. They will see the problems with Putin. But
the emptiness of his
position.
Ideology. Yeah. Not necessarily their supposed superiority, right? Because it's very difficult to look into ourselves, right? For many, but definitely Putin's ratings can suffer from this. Absolutely.
And Putin, I think, feels it and knows himself. A long time ago, I think he spoke about his experience in his life, or maybe he imagined in his dream, or there was a rat that he saw on the stairs of multi-floor apartment building. And that rat was on one of the stairs and he was walking on the other. And as he approached the rat felt being cornered and just jumped and grabbed at his hair, and I would imagine it was his nightmare or dream or whatever it is, but that was the story that he said. So what he implied by that story is that the cornered rat is the worst, that you don't want any cornered rat to deal with. And now Putin feels himself as that cornered rat. He has no way out. He cannot win no matter what he does. And that's
some Freudian analysis here. Definitely, I love this, and I agree with you, because I don't see anything that goes to his advantage right now. Either case, I think he will lose. I'm not sure if we're talking about time, how much time.
But he already lost. Yeah, he already lost. His army is shown to be nothing. No matter how much money he spent, no matter how many bullets, rockets he has, they do not know how to fight. They do not want to.
Yeah, it showed a lot about, the emptiness of rhetoric, like we're the strongest army, so that showed the truth right? If we
Yes.
are talking about the truth. And it's scary because if, the corner threat is there and this is Putin, we don't know the consequences. And I really would love Chicago to be there and your Jewish cafe to be there and Boston, where I am, to be here. So I would
Well,
really,
I'm sorry, but here you would have a cup of coffee, you'd have a good conversation, and you'd have
I
a,
would move to Chicago. I mean, I
okay,
love it.
that's good.
Yes. So I would really I would really like us to be present, because I don't think right now at this point it would be easy to say, oh, you're just panicking. I don't think it's just panic. We have a really genuine concern right now about Putin.
I agree with you. Just take a look at the reaction a day ago after this Turkish stage of negotiations. There was just slight indication that they're backing off, and the Russian YouTube video nationalists, among them once again many ethnic Ukrainians.
Yeah. Self-loathing in a way. Yeah.
It's gone absolutely nuts, ballistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are you doing? How can you do this? And man, what is going? But the same thing could be said about Hitler. Another thing that is, given that it's Jewish cafe, until now, Putin, with regard to Jews, as far as I'm concerned, was fairly okay. And that is why I was not speaking out against him. Invasion of Ukraine, I mean, Crimea was one. I knew there was going to be bigger war, but I did not know when and how. When they started, these military exercises, I knew it's war. But I've known that they were going to war. But I was not speaking against Putin for these 20 years because he treated Jews fairly well. I mean, Jews are allowed to have synagogues there, worship, celebrate. He keeps some Jews close to himself, whatever. It's much better than it was before in the Soviet Union for Jews. But now it all changes because I see already now back Zionists, all Jews. Do you know who is the worst hater of others? It's Zionists. And on, and this pig, head of a pig in front of the
Alexei Benedictov.
Yeah, Benedictov's door, here it is, Jew.
Very telling. This is very telling.
Yeah. And this is how Russia is undergoing transformation. Now, what I want to say, and that is, in my view of history of anti-Semitism in Russia, especially in Tsarist Russia, but also in Soviet Union, the biggest anti-Semitic ideologues, like publisher of Kyivlyanin, were Russians in Ukraine. There is combination of Russians and Ukrainians in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now, of course, the what is it?
But then at the same time, we have Zelensky, who is of Jewish descent, right? And
about Ukraine.
Yeah, and he's the president of Ukraine.
Well, this is a miracle. But it's an interesting miracle. We can talk about it too. Why they elected him? 73% voted for Zelensky. Why a Jew? I mean, that is an interesting issue all in its own. Maybe if you're interested, we can get together some other time and talk about it. But yes, the attitude of Ukrainians at this point is different than attitude of Russians. I spoke to some people in Ukraine now, say, in Kiev, they sit in bomb shelter, well, what about the anti-Semites? Anything, no, there's nothing there. No indication. I mean,
No.
normally in all of the military conflicts where Ukrainians participated, they always ended up killing their Jewish neighbors.
Right. So you don't see that right now. You don't see those
At
attitudes,
this
right?
particular point, no. But what I see in Russia.
But I think in Russia, there always been anti-Semitism, even on a domestic level. I've always sensed
that is always, I mean, they cannot think any other way. But what I'm saying, during the Putin's period, it was basically hidden or just not openly talked about. But what I see now, here and there and here and there, openly coming out.
But then at the same time, if you think about Putin's kind of dismissal of Soros and, you know, of his work, kind of philanthropic work, and there's lots of kind of connection to his Jewishness also by saying kind of cosmopolitan, you know, person. So I feel it was just taken aback, not to scare people away. Maybe.
Well, that very well may be, and that is, to me, very interesting, because, you know, I've been in the United States now a long time. I was exiled from the Soviet Union, and I spent all of the first 13 years in exile, trying to do something in order to destroy this one-party dictatorship in the Soviet Union. I did not want to destroy Soviet Union because, as a Jew, I felt that multinational, multicultural society is more is better for me as a Jew. But I wanted democracy and freedom. I did not want association of people by force. I wanted free association of people. And that's why I gave my life, you know, to this thing. But talking about Soros, at the time when I was publishing newsletter, Soviet American Review, and I used that newsletter mailing list to get some money for dissidents, you know, for equipment, for faxes, for copying equipment. And there were money coming from National Endowment for Democracy for people in New York. But 95% of all that money was going for people in New York. There was basically, the way I saw it, only 3 sources for money for dissidents. Just a little bit money from National Endowment for Democracy, me, Soviet American Review, and Soros. Without Soros money, there wouldn't be active dissident movement in Hungary. There wouldn't be democratic society in Hungary. And it's interesting that today in Hungary, they put Soros as the main problem of Hungary. Yeah, Soros can be criticized from any angle, but anyone can be criticized from any angle, even you, me for sure. But
absolutely.
And in Russia, if it wouldn't be for Soros helping for democratic movement in the Soviet Union, there still would be Soviet Union. Of course, maybe that's why they're against Soros, because they love Soviet Union. They love dictatorship. They love people who tell them how to live and how to think.
So it's not exactly that we're saying it was like a Jewish, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic kind of situation. But if they talk, you know, in those terms,
but maybe
like
Jewish,
on domestic level.
Jewish, you have to be, you have to focus on Jews. You see, because Russians cannot focus on Ukrainians. Ukrainians cannot focus on Russians. Hungarians cannot. Who they're going to focus on? Austrians, and Austrian Germans are going to. Who they're going to focus? No, everybody has one target: a Jew, and they try to figure out any way they like. Today, you know,
it's an easier target, right? It's an easier target.
Yes, because we are visible. On one hand, visible, just and secondly, in everybody's mind, even Chinese, where there's no.
Go figure, right?
Go figure. 1.5 billion Chinese. There's few thousand Jews there, just 2,000, whatever it is. And Chinese, their heads are full. The popular books, the most popular books, you know, how to make money as a Jew, just crazy. But and that's
what, and just to add to that, you know, you said that multinational society is the ideal, and I agree with you. But I think in the Soviet Union, we didn't have true multinational society. What we had the brother, the big brother, and all others who were supposedly follow, the big brother. So I don't believe that it was a true diversity.
Absolutely. The way I see now, after Putin and all of these things, I am rethinking the whole conception of the Soviet Union. Soviet Union, the way I see it, was nothing but another form of Russian empire.
Definitely, I agree with you. That's absolutely what it was. Yes. Although the language was a bit different, still the consequences, the results of
The language was different, and the enemies seemed like, at least initially, were different, but the substance was the same.
Yes, exactly. And right now, if we're talking about Ukrainians, right, they are building their civic identity, and Russians are fighting for their ethnic identity. So that's a big deal. We see those very outdated ethnic ideal and something modern, civic, diversified kind
I
of
hope
ideal.
that Ukrainians will be able to succeed. First of all, I am 100% absolutely for Ukrainians. I want them to fight and win. Without fighting, they cannot win, and without being armed, they cannot rely on anybody else other than themselves.
That's and I think they know it by now. I think they know it by now. They sensed it for the last months. Right. So yes, I agree with you in that.
But the civic identity, I hope that they were going to come up with after that something that will allow for a person like Zelensky to be also elected again. Because when they elected Zelensky, it was just because they felt that no other candidate was acceptable to this or this or this or this.
Right.
But Zelensky ended up as the majority.
The last choice. Yeah.
Yes, the last choice. And
so I agree with you. I wish the new Ukrainian civic identity includes everyone as a kind of diverse option, not just ethnicity wise, right? But also I think gender identity and like sexual orientation, because when the first kind of introduction of Russian military into the eastern part of Ukraine happened in 2014, right? I talked to many Ukrainian volunteers, and some of them lamented gay pride parades in Kiev, and I vehemently disagreed with them, because I thought if you're for freedom, it has to be freedom for all, not just.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, I do not need to do what you do, but I want you to be able to do it without fear, as long as it does not hurt somebody else.
Exactly. If you don't agree, fine, but still.
And that is absolutely, I agree with you, the very foundation of the free society, the very idea of free society. Continuing on your thought, I mean, the Russians have this America as a homosexual society, #1 enemy for them. This is what they have as part of their ideology, and that's what they're fighting against.
And the head of the Russian Orthodox Church also said that the war is because of, homosexuals, basically.
Absolutely, yes. And it's amazing. The patriarch of Russia, an ideologue and motivator of Russians to go and fight and kill Ukrainians. How do you like that?
That's the love. That's the
just
love.
Because he's against homosexuality.
Yeah. In addition to neo-fascism, obviously, neo-Nazism, right?
In addition to he loves authoritarian Russian regime and I mean, what can I say? I mean, maybe
complicated but interesting conversation, though, I think, if you think about all of those intricacies and details, right?
Yes, that's amazing, that Russians, and that's how. So they think that Ukraine is a representative of America. They fight in Ukraine, America in Ukraine. And the most important thing about America is the homosexuality, or the freedom for sexual relations of different people.
In a nutshell, yes, you're right. In a nutshell, that's the basic kind of line of reasoning. Yeah. And it's not new. That's interesting that in Russia, this kind of reasoning is not new. It's been going on for quite a.
If you take a look at the history of Russia in that area, until about middle of 19th century, the homosexuality was very widespread in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
This is, when I looked at it and when I discovered it, I was very much surprised. And
Right.
maybe Russians are fighting not only against Americans, but also against themselves, you know. I do not know, but
so again, this kind of self-loathing Freudian analysis.
right.
I love it. Yes, absolutely.
But in any case, you know, that is Russia. So basically, we agreed on one thing: fighting Ukraine. Russia is trying to determine what does it mean to be Russian.
Right, and lots of what it means specifically, right?
Right.
Whether it's heterosexual, homosexual, whether it's fascist, whether it's not.
What language do you speak? What religion you? By the way, on religion thing, if I remember correctly, before the war, 47% of Ukrainians were members of the Church of Moscow Patriarchy.
Yes.
Something like 47. In the beginning of war, it dropped to 21%.
Yeah.
I think that now they dropped maybe to 5%.
Now they're talking about actually banning Russian
banning.
churches. Yeah.
Banning?
From
Patriarch of all Russia in Moscow is not going to be happy.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But yeah, I'm not sure what this ban does. I don't think it does anything, but it's just the kind of the rhetoric.
I don't think they should ban it.
I
don't think there's a need to ban it because
there is no need, anymore.
I mean, people themselves, even when they go to the church that was under Russia, Moscow Patriarch, they probably now already demand that their priest is moving to Kievan church or whatever it is.
And that's the essence of democracy, when people kind of vote with their decisions, with their voices, and not the ban, not the legal kind of implications, limitations.
When you see bombs falling on you and Patriarch of Russia Church applauds it, you have a question. I mean, do I want to listen to him? You know,
exactly.
What can you say? In any case, as they say in Ukraine, Slava Ukraini, Героям Slava, and
definitely. And I like another one. Все будет Украина. Everything will be fine. Fine is equated with Ukraine, so все будет Украина. Everything will be Ukraine, or Ukraine will be forever, basically.
This is very interesting. There's in a book of Psalms, 50th Psalm, 15th verse, 15th and 16th verse. The way I read it, talks about Ukraine and Russia. And the first word there, Ukraini. Now in Hebrew, Ukraini means when you call upon me. But it sounds like Ukraini. You can read it also differently. You can read it, my Ukraine. And then Hayom, in the time of trouble, I will hear you, and I'll defend you, and you will glorify me. And then goes and says, and you, the Russia, the emphasis not on Russia, but Russia. But in Hebrew, Russia means the evildoer.
Wow. Interesting.
You just speak my words. You don't mean them. You abuse them. And this is appropriate for this Russian patriarch of all Russia.
Yeah, very much so, very much so.
And that is, you can, if you're interested, you can see it. It's Psalms 50, 15th and 16th, 50, 15, 15, 60. Of course, you need to be able to read in Hebrew, but if you go on the internet, you will.
Yeah, there are lots of tools right now to figure it out, right? Yes, definitely.
In any case, Hanna, it was great talking to you, and I hope that we'll talk again because we need to talk about different things.
Same here, Alexander. I'm grateful for the invitation. It was a great conversation.
Thank you.
Topic was very depressing, but still the conversation is great.
Thank you. Thank you for stopping by, and thank you for being our guest.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.